Hello everybody! In this video on Endgames, I am going to show you how knights can be very bad in stopping past pawns. So this is white to move and win. Some of you might know this theme already, but what would you play as white in this position? 5 more seconds? Yeah, knight takes b5. And here, if black might play knight e5, but if black takes, then white can simply win with a6. And black's knight can't stop white's pawn promoting. So knight d6, a7, knight c8, queen, and white wins. So this is a very common theme in knight endgames in particular, where they say that a knight can't stop, or it's very often really hard to stop a rook pawn from promoting. Mostly because there aren't very many squares that a knight can get to in order to blockade. So after knight takes b5, the best option might be knight e5, knight c7, knight c6, knight takes a6. So here, if white pushes the pawn with b5, the knight can take on a5, and if white's knight moves, then black can take on b4. And remember, as many of you will already know, you can't checkmate with just a knight, so all black needs to do is sacrifice his knight for 2 pawns. So king g7, and white's king needs to get in. So both kings are coming up the board. And here it's difficult for black's king to advance much, because if the king goes to a light square, then white can move the knight and check the black king, and that would give him enough time to move the pawns up the board with, say, a6. So if king d5, king d3 might be good here, just to stop black's king infiltrating. Knight a7, check, king c6, knight e6, king b5, scary, king c3, and now knight c6 doesn't work because knight d4 check would force the exchange of knights, and black couldn't then take on b4 because the a5 pawn would do a runner and go to a6, a7, a8, queen. So knight c8, check, king moves back. So now all we need to do is stop black being able to swap off the knight for 2 pawns. We have to be a little careful, but it can be done. King b3, knight d6. So black is trying to stop white pushing the pawn to b5. It's trying to blockade. King a4. Unfortunately, black has to move away. b5, knight c4. It's a very slow process, but white will win this. Knight e6, knight d6, check, king moves, knight d3, knight f5, knight f4, knight e3, knight e6 check. So the whole point is to take away c7 from black's king, and if king d7 if the king moves back to b7, then white should be able to win with a move like b6 and then king b5. But if the king goes to d7, white can actually do a neat little trick with a6. So here, again, black's knight is going to be hard-pressed to stop the rook pawn from promoting. So if, say, knight c4, a7 can be played, king takes. So it looks like if you make if you make the pawn a queen, then black can actually fork with knight b6 check, and white won't quite have enough time to promote the pawn. So it wouldn't be how white could play this and win, but just to show, queen a8, check, king a5, takes, king a6, check. And now when the king moves, knight takes pawn, king takes knight, draw. So that would be horrible. But here, white does have a way to win with king b4, knight b6, king a5, and here, if knight a8, which is played, b6 will win. And if the king moves, b7. And now black can't stop the pawns. The other move is, of course, knight c4 check. But unfortunately, king a6 will now make the position 1. Black can't return to b6 to stop the rook pawn. So I hope you enjoyed that brief video on knight and pawn endgames. Remember, the knight is very bad at stopping rook pawns promoting, so you can sometimes sacrifice your own minor piece to create a passed rook pawn on the a file or h file, and the enemy knight may not be able to stop it. So comment, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!